reports of slogans being raised against the Ayatollah and of government buildings being attacked. Yet the official response has been surprising. Iran's president took complete blame for the crisis. He says, "Don't blame America, blame us."
People are dissatisfied. We are at fault. You are at fault. Do not go after America as the one to blame. Do not go after, I don't know, some other person to blame. It is we who must serve, and they must be satisfied with us. It is we who must properly manage our resources. It is we who must find a way and solve the problem.
President Masoud Pezeshkian is a moderate leader. Maybe that's why he's striking a conciliatory tone. But on the ground, a crackdown is underway. There are reports of violent clashes between protesters and security officials. Last we checked, around 7 people had been killed. But will this unrest spiral into a revolution? Will it draw in the US military? Honestly, the script is not new. We saw even bigger protests in 2022. That's when a young Iranian woman died in police custody. Her name was Mahsa Amini, and her crime? She did not wear a hijab properly. Mahsa Amini's death triggered huge protests in Iran. Public property was torched. Even the Ayatollah's posters were destroyed. And yet, the regime survived. They used force and brutality to quell the unrest. This time, though, the regime is weaker. Their military was degraded in the war against Israel, plus senior leaders were killed in Israeli airstrikes. Also, let's not forget the Ayatollah Khamenei is 86 years old with no clear successor. So the timing of this unrest is a worry. Which raises the second question, will the US get involved? With Donald Trump, you cannot rule out anything. But the fact is, the US military is calibrated elsewhere. It is targeting alleged drug boats near Venezuela. It is also focused on Taiwan after China's mega drills. So an operation on Iran at this point would make little sense. But like I said, this is Donald Trump. You cannot rule out anything. A lot will also depend on how the protests unfold in Iran. Tehran is set to implement a new budget this year. Their plan is to increase tax revenue by 63% if they go ahead with that budget. The public anger may rise. So it's a very tricky New Year period for Iran. Let's see how the regime handles it. Now let's talk about silver. 2026 has begun on a strong note for the precious metal. Silver was once dismissed as poor man's gold because it was way cheaper than gold. It is still cheaper than gold, but it's growing faster than gold. Silver is in the middle of a historic rally. The rally started in 2025 and the momentum has continued in the new year. On the first trading day of 2026, silver rose by 3%. It is now trading at around $74 per ounce. 1 ounce is roughly 30 grams. In 2025, silver surged by nearly 150%. A 150% rise, it was the metal's best ever performance. Silver ended up beating all major asset classes. The S&P 500, the Nasdaq, gold, even Bitcoin. Silver gave higher returns than every other major investment. It was a clear winner by a wide margin. So what explains the sharp rise? The way governments look at silver is changing. It is no longer just a precious metal. It is now being seen as a strategic asset and an important rare earth metal. In 2025, the shift became official. Governments started protecting their silver stockpiles. The first move was made by the United States of America, specifically the US Department of Interior. In November 2025, it added silver to its list of critical minerals. So silver gained a new status of sorts. And this has implications in the real world. You see, the United States is a major importer of silver. It imports around 2/3 of the silver that it uses. 2/3 is imported. And silver has become a vital ingredient for technology. You need it to build solar panels and electric vehicles, even military tech and consumer electronics. They cannot be made without silver. And once silver was named a critical resource, prices moved up fast. Investors started buying it. Traders began stockpiling it, especially in New York. Last month, their silver inventories touched record highs. Basically, the change in the status of silver fueled the rally in 2025. And there's a good chance that this rally will continue this year because more and more countries are rushing to protect their silver stockpiles. China, for instance. China is tightening export controls on silver. Beijing has introduced new restrictions this week. It has limited the supplies of silver. Earlier, China had a liberalized setup, a broad quota-based approach. Beijing has now changed these rules. And there's a new system in place where the state will maintain a licensing list. And by state, we mean China's Ministry of Commerce. This ministry will authorize a list of suppliers, and only those suppliers will be allowed to export silver. As of today, China has cleared 44 companies for this. Only these 44 companies can export silver from China. So this is not a blanket ban. It's more like an approval-based system where the state can dictate the flow of silver exports. And the impact of this will be felt across the world because China is a major supplier. 70% of big tech, AI and solar companies around the world buy their silver from China, 70%, which is why experts say that Beijing is basically weaponizing supplies again. It can use silver as leverage against tech companies. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has slammed China for this. He posted on X saying, and I'm quoting, "This is not good." This is rare criticism of China by Musk because Tesla too needs silver supplies. They use silver to manufacture their cars. And India too is vulnerable. Silver prices are already high in India. In 2025, they jumped by more than 100%. Today, silver crossed 240,000 rupees per kilogram, 240,000 rupees per kilogram. That's over $2,600. And India gets 40% of its silver from China. In 2013, China made up just 25% of India's supplies. Now China's share has gone up to 40%. That's also because the demand for the metal has gone up significantly. But it also tells us that silver is no longer just a commodity. It is a strategic asset now, an asset that governments want to control and potentially use as leverage. So going forward, the prices will rise and so will the risks. A new year, but the same flashpoint. That's the story of India and Pakistan right now. This time it's over water. India has approved a crucial hydropower project over the Chenab River and Pakistan is opposing it. They say it will affect their water supply downstream. First, let's take a closer look at this project. It's called Dulhasti Stage 2. It will be built in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar. Total cost around 3,200 crore rupees, which is around $345 million. Now, technically, this is not a new dam. A dam already exists over the Chenab in Kishtwar. That's Dulhasti Stage 1. So this project is basically an extension of it. Nonetheless, it is very significant because the Chenab is one of the rivers listed in the Indus Waters Treaty. And we've told you about this before on the show. The Indus Waters Treaty. India and Pakistan signed this treaty back in 1960. Pakistan got access to 3 rivers, Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. And India got access to the other 3 rivers, Ravi, Beas and Satluj. Since this project is linked to the Chenab, Pakistan is crying foul. Look at what a former minister and senator in Pakistan is saying. In flagrant violation of the Indus Waters Treaty, India has just given approval To the Dulhasti Stage 2 hydropower project on the Chenab River, this weaponization of water is neither sane nor acceptable in a region on the front lines of climate change and environmental stress. As usual, Pakistan is blowing a fuse. But the fact is, India has put the Indus Treaty in abeyance. In simpler words, New Delhi has suspended the treaty. This decision was taken after the Pahalgam terror attack in 2025. And New Delhi's justification was clear. Blood and water cannot flow together. Today, India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar reiterated that position. He said, you cannot share water with terror sponsors.
You know, many years ago, we agreed to a water arrangement, water sharing arrangement. Because the belief, the underpinning of that was, it was a gesture of goodwill. Because for good neighborliness, we were doing it. But if you had decades of terrorism, there is no good neighborliness. If there is no good neighborliness, you don't get the benefits of that good neighborliness. You can't say, I will, please share water with me, but I will continue terrorism with you. That's not reconcilable.
So India has put the treaty on hold. And that's the first point. Secondly, even if we hadn't, there is no violation here. The Indus Treaty stops you from consuming the other side's water, but not non-consumptive use. That is allowed. Things like hydropower projects or fishing or boating, they're all allowed. These things are permitted under the treaty. Just one condition though, your project design must fit a certain standard, and India says it does. New Delhi says the designs are in line with the Indus Treaty's provisions, meaning Pakistan does not have a case here. You see, India is not damming rivers to dry up Pakistan. It is simply correcting a historical wrong. Most experts agree that the Indus Treaty was a bad deal. India is located up the stream, yet Pakistan gets more of the water supply. Plus, things have changed since 1960. We've seen climate change wreak havoc. We've seen India's population explode. So naturally, our calculations have changed. We need more hydropower projects to meet our demands. Hence, the renewed focus on the Indus Basin. And the Dulhasti is just one project. In October last year, India approved another one. Sawalkot, also on the Chenab. Of course, Pakistan does not like any of this. They say the Chenab's water flow has reduced in recent months, and that puts Pakistani agriculture at risk. Well, you know the solution, don't you? Stop exporting terrorism to India, crack down on the anti-India forces, and then India will listen to your concerns. Listen, not resolve. Because, like I said, the Indus Treaty has very few takers. It's a poor deal from a different era. As India focuses on renewables, the Indus Basin cannot be left behind. It's a treasure trove waiting to be harnessed. The sooner Pakistan realizes that, the better.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Good evening. You're watching The Right Stand here on CNN News 18 with me, Poonam Burde. Indore, India's cleanest city, is facing a grim tragedy. What began on Christmas Day with reports of foul...
Viewers, look at your screens. What kind of insensitivity is this? It's the Marie Antoinette moment of the Madhya Pradesh government. While the Madhya Pradesh Sarkar funnels toxic sewage water into homes in Indore that brings death and illness, the Chief Minister and his colleagues flaunt mineral water at a press conference. You can see that, viewers. The quality of the water that Indore's residents have been getting is exemplified by that brackish color in the water in the bucket, viewers. And on the right, pristine Bisleri water. Viewers, this was all at a press conference. A press conference ironically called to express regret for the catastrophe that has hit Indore. Look at the contrast. Mineral water for them, sewage for you. These pictures tell you something. They point to a profound arrogance, a culture of insensitivity and impunity. You also see this in Delhi, viewers. Pollution is off the charts, but the ministers are sitting cozily, the Delhi government ministers, at their homes with their expensive air purifiers, while you're breathing toxic air. It's all emblematic of a we couldn't give a damn attitude. More than a dozen are dead in Indore because the Madhya Pradesh state government allowed them to die. There's no other way of saying this. The administration slept on complaints by the residents of Bhagirathpura locality when they alerted the city's mayor that the
Donald Trump does not like to be questioned about his health, and the more he is asked about it, the more irritated he seems to become. But this week, he decided to do something different. The US president did not dodge the questions or change the topic. Instead, he spoke at length about his health. A new interview is out, and in it, Trump has tried to set the record straight about his health, his treatments, his fitness, and the growing scrutiny around it. He started by saying there is nothing wrong with him. Honestly, it sounds like a very loaded statement. Trump saying there's nothing wrong with him. He said he is in quote-unquote perfect health and that the concerns around his health are overblown. But the thing is, these concerns and questions did not come out of nowhere. Over the past year, Trump has been seen with bruises on his hands. He has also been seen with swollen legs and closed eyes for extended periods during public events. The White House has repeatedly dismissed all of this. Officials insist the president is in excellent health. And yet the speculation has only grown. Images related to Trump's medical conditions have been widely circulated and questions have been asked. So now Donald Trump has tried to address the matter. He said the bruising on his hands is caused by medication and that he takes aspirin daily. Aspirin is a medicine often used to prevent heart problems. Experts say aspirin also thins the blood and it can lead to bruising, especially in older people. Now, Trump says that he's been taking a high dose of aspirin for years, although doctors have advised him to reduce it. And guess what? Trump has also acknowledged that he uses makeup to cover the bruise. He says this is to avoid distraction during public events. What about exercise? The US president says he does not do it because he finds it boring. Let me quote. To walk on a treadmill or run on a treadmill for hours and hours, like some people do, that's not for me. In his own words, a game of golf is enough for Trump. And even then he doesn't walk, he uses a cart. Of course, it's a matter of personal choice, but it's also a national headline because this is the same president who has launched a campaign called Make America Healthy Again. Clearly, Trump is not leading by example. Having said that, the story is not just about his medical tests or his medication or even his makeup. This story is about how a president handles scrutiny. For decades, American presidents have faced questions about their health. Franklin D. Roosevelt was scrutinized over the extent of his disability. Ronald Reagan faced questions about memory loss, and more recently, Joe Biden was challenged over his age and stamina. And Trump, by the way, was on top of the list of people mocking Biden. Now he finds himself in a similar situation. Donald Trump is 79 years old, the oldest person to be sworn in as US president. In his election campaign in 2024, Trump used health as a political weapon against Biden. He questioned Biden's sharpness and stamina and his fitness to run for office. Trump used to call Biden Sleepy Joe. But now that the spotlight has shifted, Trump is not liking it very much. He insists that he is healthy. He's also posted on social media saying that he has aced his medical examinations. But the debate around his health continues because in politics, perception often matters as much as reality, if not more. And when it is about the health of a sitting president, it is not just a personal matter, it is a matter of national security. Let's turn to Bangladesh now. We are 5 weeks out from elections there. Arguably the most important election in recent history for this country. It is shaping up to be a two-horse race. On one side is the BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. On the other side is the Islamist Alliance. And leading this alliance is the radical Jamaat-e-Islami. Opinion polls show the BNP winning the election on the 12th of February, and the Jamaat could be a close second. Maybe that's why this group has made a new pitch. The Jamaat president is offering to create a unity government, basically a government of all political parties in Bangladesh.
Because we want to see a stable nation, at least for 5 years. If the parties come together, that we'll run the government together. But we have given 3 conditions to every parties.
And what are those 3 conditions? Pretty generic. No corruption, a commitment to social justice, and fulfilling public aspirations. Like I said, very generic. Nonetheless, these are the Jamaat's conditions. And how are the political parties responding? The BNP leadership is yet to react to this offer. Many of them are in mourning after former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia's death. So there is silence from the BNP. The question is, how should we see the Jamaat's offer? Is it desperation, fearing a loss? Is it a genuine hand of friendship? Or is it something else altogether? This could be the Jamaat's way of laundering its image, because their history is filled with blood. The Jamaat supported Pakistan's genocide in 1971. Their end goal is to impose the Sharia law in Bangladesh. It's not exactly an election-winning pitch, so maybe this offer is meant to moderate their image, to portray them as a great unifier, as a statesman-like party. I say that because the Jamaat chief spoke about India as well. He did ask New Delhi to return former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. At the same time, he called for balanced ties. Believe it or not, the Jamaat chief also narrated a story about an Indian diplomat. Listen to this.
It's a matter of worry, because India is our friend, and we have treaty to mutual exchange of the citizens if someone is accused or victim. But India is not doing it. She has already been convicted by a court, you know. Say, for example, one diplomat visited me while I was sick. After post-operative, Indian diplomat, after my post-operative period here in my house, in this house. But they requested us not to make it public. Why? There are so many diplomats visited me and it was made public. Where is the problem? So we must become open to all and open to each other.
Let's assume this story is true. It's one hell of a way to build trust. The diplomat asked you to not publicize the visit, but you reveal it on international television, a great trust-building measure. Either way, this is a space to watch out for. The Jamaat is contesting its first election in 17 years. Their strategy and promises will be crucial. Meanwhile, what is the interim regime of Mohammad Yunus up to? Less consequential things. Things like resetting ties with Pakistan and reviving the SARC. That's what Yunus is doing in his lame duck phase. Bangladesh and Pakistan are set to establish an air corridor, basically direct flights between the two countries. Pakistan has given a green light to Biman Airways, which is Bangladesh's national carrier. They will soon operate flights from Dhaka to Karachi. And this is a big deal. Direct flights between Pakistan and Bangladesh were stopped in 2018. There was no political will to revive it either, but Mohammad Yunus is more than willing. He has already permitted 2 Pakistani carriers to fly to Bangladesh, Fly Jinnah and Air Sial. And now a Bangladeshi carrier has also got the permit. And Yunus's grand plans do not end here. He is repeating his broken record on SARC. As you know, SARC is the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Think of it as South Asia's ASEAN or EU. SARC has been dormant for more than a decade now because one SARC member, one neighbor, cannot stop exporting terrorism. But somehow Yunus is still a big fan. He met South Asian delegates in Dhaka this week. All of them had flown in to attend Khaleda Zia's funeral. Except India's S. Jaishankar, everyone called on Mohammad Yunus. And here's what he told them. I'm quoting. We witnessed a true SARC spirit at the funeral yesterday. SARC is still alive. The SARC spirit is still alive. We shared our grief and sorrow together. Yunus is making a classic mistake. Yes, there is shared grief and common sentiments, but those alone cannot guarantee political unity. For that, interests must coincide. Minister Jaishankar spoke about that today. He said, if neighbors are good to India, India will be good to its neighbors.
If you have a neighbor who is good to you, or at least who is not harmful to you, your natural instinct is to be kind, is to help that neighbor. If the neighbor has a problem, you would like to contribute in some way. If nothing else, you'll say hello. You will try to build friendships, bonding, etc. And that's what we do as a country. See, most of our neighbors, I think, have, a realization that India's growth is today a lifting tide. That if India grows, all our neighbors will grow with us. They will have many more opportunities. I think that, in a sense, is the message which I also took to Bangladesh.
So here's our message to Yunus. Give it a rest. You had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a chance to build stability and prosperity in Bangladesh, yet what did you do? Obsess over Sheikh Hasina in India. Unfortunately, that's how history will remember Mohammed Yunus, not as some grand reformer, but as the man who forgave the perpetrators of his people's genocide. Our next story is from Venezuela. It is a country under growing pressure from the United States. In recent weeks, tensions have risen around its coastline. U.S. forces have stepped up their presence in the region. They've also carried out strikes on suspected drug boats. Washington says its actions are aimed at curbing drug trafficking. But Caracas says the real goal is regime change. Amid this escalating standoff, Venezuela's president is extending an olive branch to Donald Trump. Nicolas Maduro says he is open to talks with Washington. He says he is ready to discuss drug trafficking as well as oil cooperation with the United States. And guess what? He did not deliver this message from a podium or a press conference, but from behind the wheel of a car he was driving. Here's a report.
Leaders across the world have generally one thing in common. They are often seen addressing the press through news conferences. But when was the last time you saw one deliver a message from behind the wheel of a moving car? Well, Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, just did that. He spoke to a journalist while driving his car. And the timing could not be more significant. The Caribbean is growing tense again. In recent weeks, the US has stepped up military operations in the region. It has targeted boats it says were carrying drugs. It has seized oil tankers from Venezuela, and it has carried out airstrikes. Some of them have been inside the Venezuelan territory. Washington says this is about its security. It is about stopping drug trafficking and about protecting Americans from narcotics flooding across the border. But Caracas tells a very different story. Venezuela says these operations are not about drugs. It says they are about pressure and about forcing political change. Accusations have been traded from both sides, but now Maduro says he is open to talks with the US.
Surely in a few days we could talk. What I can tell you is that the national defense system, which combines the military and police forces, has guaranteed and continues to guarantee territorial integrity. If they want to have serious talks about an agreement to combat drug trafficking, we are ready.
It was his clearest signal yet. A signal that despite the escalation, he is keeping the door open. Maduro also confirmed he spoke with Donald Trump by phone. He said the call took place recently and described it as respectful.
We have had only one conversation, Raminit. He called me on Friday, November 21st, from the White House, and I was at the Miraflores Palace. We spoke for 10 minutes, and it was, as I have said, a respectful conversation, very respectful.
Mr. President Donald Trump.
This confirmation matters because since that call, the pressure has only increased. Maduro says that call happened weeks ago, Reports suggest in that call, Maduro even offered to step down, but nothing materialized. Since then, US operations have expanded. Recently, Washington said it carried a drone strike. It was on a docking site inside Venezuela. This was the first such land strike during this US campaign. Until now, Washington only struck at sea. But Maduro did not directly address that operation. Instead, he framed his message as an offer.
Hasta agradable.
To the people of the United States, I say what I have always said. Venezuela, you have a brother country. To the people of the United States, I say, we are friendly government.
Y esperemos.
He then went further and even offered to talk with the US on its oil reserves.
Seguramente.
If they want oil from Venezuela, Venezuela is ready for U.S. investment, as with Chevron. Whenever they want, wherever they want, and however they want. It's up to the U.S.
The message was carefully chosen. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, and oil has always shaped its relationship with Washington. Now, that relationship stands at a crossroads. One side speaks of security, the other of sovereignty. And between them lies a region under pressure, with diplomacy hanging by a thread.
Our next story is about artificial intelligence. It was sold to us as the future. But as we speak, it is unleashing horror on the present. It is digitally undressing women and children. I'm talking about Grok. Grok is an AI chatbot. It's on X, formerly known as Twitter. Grok can answer your questions. It claims to verify facts in real time. And in 2024, it also added image generating tools. You can write a prompt to generate an image, like an elephant flying in space. It started off as a fun activity, but of late it has taken a disgusting turn. A new trend has emerged in India and across the globe. People have started removing things from photos. Again, it began as a seemingly harmless move. People removed friends that they did not like, or they removed an ex, or even leaders from photos. But then, many started using this tool to digitally undress women. They took photos of celebrities, influencers, or any women on the internet, and they added prompts like, remove her clothes, turn this into a bikini, make it explicit. And not just women, they did it with photos of children as well. What's worse, Grok complied. Grok followed these horrid prompts and it created those deepfake images. Now, AI going wrong is not new, but Grok's case was different. Most AI tools generate images privately. You prompt it, you see it, end of story. But Grok is different because Grok is woven into X itself. So these images appear on a public media feed, which means a woman could post a perfectly normal picture, but within minutes, a deep fake explicit version of her could be circulating on X. This is digital sexual violence. 85% women online have already experienced some sort of digital violence, and now Grok is amplifying it. What does the bot say about this? Grok has admitted that users were quote-unquote testing its limits. Here's what its own policies say. Grok claims to ban non-consensual explicit content. It says it prioritizes ethics and safety, and yet it keeps posting explicit photos of women. And what about the platform X? Well, X too claims to have strict policies against non-consensual explicit content, at least on paper. But policies mean nothing if you do not enforce them. It's like a safety sign on a road. It's useless if it fails to stop speeding cars. And right now, Grok is like a Ferrari with no brakes on a very crowded street. So people are asking the obvious question. If you knew this was possible, why did you not build better guardrails? Why did Grok not say no? Why did X not take down these pictures? And what about Elon Musk? He's the owner of X. He usually has something to say about everything, but on this one, there is radio silence. And we know why. Because this is not some random glitch. It fits a larger pattern. In 2025, ex-AI workers said they were exposed to disturbing explicit content. This was during AI training. Grok also has a companion mode. It was criticized for being overly sexualized, and now there's this scandal. Although critics say there is a bigger problem here, and that is weak safety enforcement. And guess who gets hurt the most? It's not the person typing the prompt, it's not the company releasing the tool, it's the women and children whose images are digitally stolen, stripped and circulated. I guess the question is, what can we do to prevent this? India's Information Ministry has already written a letter to X. It has given the company a 72-hour ultimatum. They have to remove the sexually explicit, obscene content by then. X is yet to respond. But here are two other things that we can do. One, strengthen our deepfake laws, make the punishment stricter. And two, demand transparency from X on safety upgrades and consider regulatory action if safeguards are not enforced, including a temporary ban or a conditional ban. And India has done this before. It has acted against platforms like Meta, which enabled non-consensual content in the past. So it should do the same with X. And now to the part that concerns you, because this is not just a policy debate, this is also about your personal digital safety. What should you do? First of all, X uses your data to train Grok. Disable that. Opt out. Go to your settings and change it. Disallow Grok from using your public data. It won't solve the whole problem, but it will at least protect your media footprint. 2, if you see AI harassment on X, report it immediately. It doesn't matter who it is, report the post. If you see your own photo, of course, report it. File a harassment claim with X. And third, promote digital safety. Treat deepfakes like a digital crime scene. Do not share or amplify those posts. Because AI may not be inherently dangerous, but AI without accountability is like a loaded gun online. So I guess the future can wait for now, because there's a lot to fix in the present. In China, the conversation is back to birth control, only this time Beijing is treating contraception like a sin good. Yesterday, it raised taxes on a range of contraceptive products in the hope that young people will have more children. As bizarre as it sounds, it also marks a dramatic shift in China. For decades, their government enforced strict limits on childbirth. They had the infamous one-child policy. But now their population is shrinking, so the government is trying to engineer a baby boom. Critics say it won't work because the policymakers are missing the key point here. Young Chinese are not avoiding children because birth control is cheap. They're opting out because childcare is expensive and because social pressure is intense. Here's a report.
China wants more babies, and it has a new plan to make that happen. It is raising taxes on birth control and lowering the cost of raising children. As of yesterday, China has made contraception more expensive. A 13% sales tax now applies to condoms, birth control pills, and other contraceptive devices. At the same time, childcare services are now tax-exempt. This is part of a wider tax reform. China is phasing out tax exemptions from the 1990s. That was when the one-child policy was in place. It was one of the most far-reaching population control policies in modern history. Introduced in 1980, the policy limited most families in China to just one child. The goal was to slow population growth. The rules were strict, and it stayed in place for decades. The Chinese government claims the policy prevented 400 million births, but that figure is disputed. Today, China is dealing with the aftermath. In 2022, its population shrank for the first time in over 60 years. It fell by around 850,000. There are fewer young people and more elderly citizens. At the same time, abortion numbers remain high. Between 2014 and 2021, China reported 9 to 10 million abortions every year. But those are just the official figures. The real number may be higher due to unregistered clinics. China ended the one-child policy in 2016 because of its population decline. And it wants to reverse it. But this new plan has triggered backlash. The government says this is about long-term stability, but many see it as tone deaf. The criticism is growing, so is the confusion. Because the real issue is not cost, it is choice. And the cost of raising a child in China is one of the highest in the world. Private schooling, classes, healthcare, rent, it all adds up. Some even raise question over the intent of the state. The taxes on birth control, is this really about boosting the birth rate, or just boosting tax revenue? Last, with the economy slowing and property sales down, Beijing is looking for new sources of income. But even if this is well-intentioned, it might not work. Previous efforts have failed. In 2023, local officials asked women to register their menstrual cycles. The aim was to track pregnancies, but the response was anger and distrust. That trust deficit still exists. Beijing says it wants to support families, but many young people feel pressured, not supported. They are pushing back against marriage and dating. Sales of adult products have gone up. Marriage rates have gone down. More and more people are choosing to be alone. This is a real challenge for the Chinese state. China's population is aging, its gender imbalance is growing, and young people feel left out of the system. Officials are trying to engineer a baby boom, so China is taxing birth control and removing tax on childcare. But no policy can change what people want or how they feel. Because the real issue is not about babies, it's about belief. And rebuilding that trust may take more than tax reform.
In the olden days, wars were fought with ships. Then came weapons and spies, and now it will be attention spans. The next war will be fought with attention spans. Says who? Bridget Phillipson. She's the UK's education secretary, that's like their education minister, and she says a decline in reading is a national security threat. Yes, a national security threat. It may sound like an exaggeration, but it's not really. And it's not just the UK that is raising an alarm. Countries across the world are urging people to read. Tonight we'll tell you why, and we'll start with the United Kingdom. For generations, kids were raised on Enid Blyton and Harry Potter books. They read Shakespeare in the classroom and the famous five on long train rides. Reading was a fun hobby for many. But then came the internet. Social media took over the world, and suddenly books had a formidable competitor. Digital screens. Today they're everywhere. Half a decade ago, more than half of the children in the UK said they loved reading. Now only 33% say that they enjoy reading, only 33%, and among these, boys are ditching books faster. So much so that the government is now concerned. And they say this is not just about books improving your vocabulary or your grades. This is about books preparing you for the world. Britain says this decline in reading has a geopolitical impact. Children that do not read are easier targets for misinformation. They cannot seem to spot fake news easily. And who is taking advantage of this? Britain says it's Russia. It says the Russians are coming up with fake headlines and fake stories, and the children who don't read cannot seem to spot them. They cannot tell the difference between real news and fake news. So Britain is now trying to make reading great again. They're introducing new activities, organizing family reading drives, encouraging community hubs, upgrading school libraries, anything to get the younger generation to bury their nose into a book. Because Britain says the antidote to disinformation is not more firewalls, it is more readers. Guess who else is saying the same thing without the Russia part? The government of Uttar Pradesh. It is India's most populous state. It is introducing mandatory newspaper reading in schools. For 10 minutes every day, students must read a newspaper, read the major news, go through the editorials. And what purpose does it serve? According to the government, it will inculcate reading habits and reduce screen time. And these are just two examples. They're worth highlighting because globally, fewer young people are reading for pleasure, not because they cannot read, but because they choose not to do so. Let me show you a survey from 2019. It featured people under 18 years of age. Only 26% of them said that they were reading every day. Sounds dismal? It is. The figures are lower than any other generation, and it's not hard to figure out why. Information has become faster, answers have become shorter, courtesy AI, and patience has become thinner. Reading usually demands time, focus, and curiosity, and that makes it a rare habit in today's age. But you see, governments can only do so much. They cannot take away your phone and shove a book in your hands. They shouldn't. Reading should be personal. It is personal. To read a book, you must delve into it. And that's what people are increasingly failing to do, which is a shame, to be honest, because there is no other experience like reading a book. So tonight, before you scroll again, try to pause, pick up a book, give your attention to something that gives back, something that makes you think, something that forces you to question, something that helps you catch the disinformation, because a book may not fight for your attention, but it definitely rewards it.
Good evening. You're watching The Right Stand here on CNN News 18 with me, Poonam Burde. Indore, India's cleanest city, is facing a grim tragedy. What began on Christmas Day with reports of foul-smelling tap water has now claimed at least 15 lives, including the youngest victim, a 5-month-old infant. More than 150 residents still remain in hospital, some of them fighting for their survival. Investigations have revealed that a leaking pipeline beneath a public toilet allowed sewage to seep directly into the drinking water supply. Documents accessed by CNN News 18 exposed the systemic failures that led to this tragedy. This was a tragedy that was completely man-made and completely avoidable. A proposed Narmada pipeline for Bhagirathpura, which is the area where this tragedy took place, in 2022 has been delayed for years. We're in 2026 as we speak. Tenders were issued only in mid-2025. Construction began just last month, nearly 3 years late. Worse still, these sewer lines were laid above drinking water pipelines, a blatant violation of safety rules, and it went unchecked for 3 long years. Civic authorities have defended this in court. They've gone on to say that everything is under control and that action has been taken and some officials have already been sacked or have been suspended. They said that the state administration and medical authorities have been continuously monitoring the situation on a minute-by-minute basis, as if that wasn't the most basic thing that they could have done. And while ministers in government meetings are sipping bottled waters, mineral water, ordinary citizens have paid with their lives drinking that sewage water. A video from a government officials meeting is now irking the public, not just in Madhya Pradesh or Indore, but across the country, and rightly so. Because you see the chief minister, several other ministers, officials sitting around a table discussing what next to be done. All of them have a bottled water in front of them, while everyone else in this area of Bhagirathpura have been drinking sewage water for the last 2 weeks. 150 people are still fighting for their life, even as the state government comes out with lip service to say, oh, that look, we apologize for what happened. Look, we've taken action against certain individuals. But what about the delay? What about the fact that they didn't do their jobs right in the first place, which is why we had to lose 15 lives today?
इस वक्त हम भागीरथपुरा में मौजूद हैं। ये तस्वीर दिखा रहे हैं और ये वही गली है जहां पर सबसे ज्यादा लोग प्रभावित हुए। सीमा प्रजापत, ये उनका मकान है और उनकी उल्टी दस्त की वजह से जान चल गई। अस्पताल ले जा रहे थे परिवार के लोग और बीच रास्ते में शायद उनकी मौत हो गई। कब से उन्हें ये परेशानी हुई थी?
एक ही दिन। हाँ, एक ही दिन।
2-3 घंटे ही हुए सर।
हाँ जी।
सुबह तबीयत खराब हुई 4-5 बजे और 9 बजे तो खत्म हो गई वो। हमको संभलने का ही मौका नहीं मिला।
क्या दिक्कत थी उन्हें? कि
उल्टी दस्त हुए।
उल्टी दस्त।
हाँ।
अच्छा, इस गली की बात की जाए तो कितने लोगों को ये शिकायत होगी?
गली में अभी ये मान लो कि 10-12 लोग बीमार है गली में। मेरी खुद की लड़की की तबीयत खराब हो रही है, बैठी सामने, इसको उल्टी दस्त हो रहा है, इसका इलाज चल रहा है।
और शायद कोई और महिला,
एक महिला है जिनको कल वहाँ एडमिट करा, वो वहाँ उनका घर है। ये एक लड़के को अभी लेके गए हॉस्पिटल।
जी। पानी कब से गंदा आ रहा था आप लोग?
8-15